Hi, thank you for joining this live stream today. My name's Hannah. I'm an early careers apprentice here at Channel 4. So the purpose today of this live stream, it's National Apprenticeship Week, so happy National Apprenticeship Week, everybody. The purpose of this live stream is to sort of find out why these four lovely apprentices we have here at Channel 4 decided to take the apprenticeship route and why they decided to sort of choose a career in media. As you can see from the title of this live stream, it's Men in Media. So really going to delve into why they decided to take the route that they have today, and any sort of tips that they can give you. Our applications for Channel 4 apprenticeships are now currently open for a September 2023 start. So this is a great time for you to get some tips and advice and hear from some great apprentices at Channel 4. So like I said, I'm an early careers apprentice, so I help other young people get into media and all sorts of things like that. So what I'm going to do is ask each of my panelists today to introduce themselves, and if you could let us know your job title and what you do at Channel 4, that'd be great. So if Lewis, if you want to kick it off, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, I'm Lewis. I'm a software tester apprentice in the London office. I joined back in August, so I've been here about 5, 6 months now.
Thanks, Lewis.
Hi, I'm Sean and I work with the broadcast operations team and I joined in October. So yeah, about 4 months now.
Thank you, Sean. Who's next?
Hi, I'm Kamal. I work in the learning and development the team. I've been here for about 4 months, started in October, yeah, 4 months.
Hi, my name's Taylor. I've been here since last July and I'm a social media apprentice and I handle branded content that we put out through Channel 4.
Thanks, guys. So I'm just going to kick it off with a question. So I guess a main thing I'd really like to know is what attracted you to an apprenticeship at Channel 4? So what initially, like, you know, when you were looking through apprenticeships, what really drew you to choose to apply to Channel 4? Lewis, can you kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, I kind of went for apprenticeships when I was an A-level student before coming to Channel 4. So when it came to like time to apply to universities for like next steps, I just felt university wasn't right for me. Wasn't interested, didn't really feel like spending the next 3, 4 years just in consistent education. So that's when I started looking at apprenticeships. So I looked at a lot of companies, but Channel 4 stood out because of a lot of the way that they're a very inclusive company. They they don't really care what race you are, they don't care where you're from, what disabilities you have, which is nice to know, that everyone's going to be treated the same. There's not any discrimination. So yeah, I think that's one big thing. Also, I think it's quite nice working as in a tech role in a media company. I find that quite interesting, because that's you're not going to get that kind of experience anywhere else really.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think one thing especially about your apprenticeship is a lot of people would associate media with maybe being sort of like behind the camera, working on set, but it really shows that you can work in media, but you don't like necessarily have to work in sort of a creative role. So it's great that you sort of went for a more of a tech-based role, but you're working in an industry that you're interested in. And did you ever have like a media background or anything like that? Is that why you sort of were drawn towards Channel 4?
So for A levels, I did IT, business, and media. So I had obviously a little bit of media, but I wouldn't say I've filmed shows or whatever. So I've had a little bit of introduction to the media industry, but nothing extensive, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I like the point you said, sort of like you kind of knew university wasn't for you and you didn't really want to carry on like sort of 3 more years of education. Is that sort of similar for the rest of you? Is that kind of like what differentiated you, or were you considering university as well? Does anyone else have anything to say about that?
Yeah, so at the time I was applying for a bunch of different jobs at the time and I also applied. So I have a audio background, so I was potentially going to study in Edinburgh for 2 years at uni doing sound design. But Channel 4 is, I guess, one of those companies that everyone knows and it stands out. And I kind of agree with Lewis on a lot of grounds that it's very inclusive, very welcoming, very friendly type of company. And I think overall, it's better to have that work experience and study at the same time rather than just studying for 2 to 4 years.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great opportunity to sort of earn a salary whilst you still get to study at the same time rather than solely, focusing just on studying. I think that's a great point about apprenticeships. And then another thing I was like really interested to hear is sort of like what your peers, like friends and family, felt about you taking the apprenticeship route. I think we hear a lot about why we decided as like individuals to choose the apprenticeship route, but it'd be interesting to hear like what people around you thought about taking that sort of route. Kamal, what was everyone thinking when you sort of decided to choose an apprenticeship?
I feel like everyone was for it. They were quite surprised, and it seems different. When you say apprenticeship, people normally tend to think of like manual labor. No one really thinks there's educational routes in apprenticeships. It's normally like you're going to be an electrician or go
Yeah.
down being a plumber. But when I said I've got an apprenticeship in Channel 4, people were quite shocked that that was even available. So I feel like it opened a lot of doors to other people when they're choosing their pathways. So it's quite inspiring, actually.
Yeah, I think when you talk about like the team that you work in Channel 4, it makes people sort of think, oh, actually, I could work for like such a great company like Channel 4, but I don't necessarily have to, do the stereotypical like camera role. Or like you said, when you talk about apprenticeships, people may think it's like manual labor, which is not always the case. And there's just so many options out there. I just think it's not spoken about enough. Um, okay, cool, great. And Taylor, something I wanted to talk about with you is because at the moment we have an application open for a social media apprentice. So, and I know obviously you work in social media, so I wondered like sort of what's involved with like your day-to-day role.
So a lot of my day-to-day role, because I do branded things, is kind of like that campaign optimization, figuring out how we can sort of deliver a campaign which will satisfy clients and stakeholders. Obviously, depending on what genre or what account you're on, things are quite different. You know, if you're on E4, a lot of your day-to-day will be around clips from TV shows. Channel 4 will be a lot of sort of your game shows and your more like talk shows kind of things. But generally speaking, as a social media apprentice, a lot of your day to day does revolve around optimizing the things that are coming out, because obviously you want your posts to do well in an environment where there's a lot of things going out. I think it's quite an odd sort of idea that you can have a position in social media and you get paid to work around social media, considering it's such a normal part of all our lives.
Yeah,
Um, so I think because it's so new, there's still a lot kind of being discovered, but I think that's probably the most exciting part about it, just because it's such a fast changing and like really well developed industry that there is constantly something new to be discovered.
definitely. And did you always know that you wanted to go into like a creative role, or were you like a bit, what was your sort of background when you left school?
So originally I went and I did a game design course in college, which I didn't enjoy. So I left that. I went on to do other apprenticeships. I've done things in business administration and I enjoyed it, but there was always that part of me that still wanted to go back to creative. I felt like things were being wasted. So obviously I saw the position for Channel 4 pop up and I thought it would be a really wasted opportunity if I didn't apply. And then obviously here I am 6 months later. And it's a really satisfying feeling knowing that I'm finally in the position that I wanted to be in from the get-go. Especially because it's social media and I use social media every single day. It's kind of like you're being paid to do the things that you enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's like quite good to hear because I think a lot of people leave school and they're a bit worried about sort of like what their next steps are going to be. And I think you kind of worry that you should be there like straight away, whereas it may take a bit of time to sort of figuring out where you want to go. And I know personally for myself, like I didn't start my apprenticeship till 4 years after I left school, because I just wasn't sure which direction to take. And I just think like careers are never really linear, are they? They sort of, it takes a while to sort of figure out what you want to do next. Um, and then how do you find like the setup of Channel 4 and the way we work with apprenticeships? How do you find sort of like with your work balance and your study? Can anyone sort of like talk about that?
Yeah, sure, I'll go for it. So as an apprentice, like we have 4 days working and then a day off the job doing like apprentice work, coursework, or sessions or whatever it is for your course. So for me personally, I find it really manageable. Throughout the week, there's also always time that I can add a bit to a press PowerPoint or submit a piece of work online. On Fridays, I spend most of that day just working on my portfolio pieces, which like a PowerPoint from what I've been doing at work. Whether that's working on a project, taking screenshots, attaching it, of like logs or lines of code or something like that. So yeah, I find it quite manageable. I get great support from my manager. He's always coming up with new ideas of things to add to them, things to include, how to meet new objectives, and all stuff like that. Yeah, it's just support from all angles, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is good because with apprenticeship, you get that whole day to study, whereas sometimes with things like university, obviously you have to juggle, your lectures and studying in the evenings. And I think a great thing about apprenticeships is also you get your free time, like you get your weekends, you get your evenings because you have your study day to sort of get it all done. So that's personally, especially like why I really enjoy doing an apprenticeship because I know I've got that day to dedicate to it. Um, and anyone sort of like give if anyone could give like males advice, 'cause I think maybe some like males may look towards media routes and think maybe it's not for them. They might think it's more female based. But is there any sort of advice you would like give males who are looking into like the Channel 4 apprenticeships? They might be looking at sort of like a production apprenticeship and they might think it's not for them. What would you say to anyone that's sort of like looking towards our apprenticeships at the moment? What would you say,
I
Taylor?
mean,
Because you're in quite a creative role.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I feel like it's one of them things where, although it is typically sort of more engineered towards, like the idea that creative roles are engineered towards women, I think the only reason that is because there's this sort of like misconception that like just because it's creative, you shouldn't be doing it as a male. But I think once you get into that like role and that position, you kind of realize that it really is just a role for anybody. As long as you've got that sort of enjoyment to do these things as a creative, you forget that you're in a role that is very typically, you know, not geared towards men. But it's really rewarding once you kind of like once you get rid of that idea in your head, it's one of the easiest things to forget.
Yeah. Sean, did you want to touch on that?
I was just going to agree. I think just take a shot, don't feel like that an industry isn't for you because of something that you think. I mean, just give it a shot and give it a go because you never know what it'll end up being. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those things like you shouldn't just like think about it, just do it and just like go and apply. I think the
Exactly.
more you sort of sit on it and the more you think about it, you're just going to put yourself off it, I think. So like when these opportunities come around, I think it's just so important just to go for it because you just never know what's going to happen. And then did any of you actually consider, I know Sean, you said you considered university. Did anyone else consider university or were you sort of like dead set on the apprenticeship route?
I would say I did have a look at a few universities only because when you're at college, they do say you need to find a university before it's too late, otherwise you're
Yeah.
gonna have to take a gap year and so forth. But I looked into it, I didn't really find anything that appealed to me, so I thought I'll go for an apprenticeship instead.
Yeah, definitely. I think it also depends on like how you learn, like what kind of learning. Like a lot of people know they want to go to uni maybe because they enjoy doing like learning like from books and from lectures, whereas like I think especially like myself, I'm not more of a hands-on learner. I like to be shown how to do things. I like to do it on the job. Um, Kamal, what do you actually enjoy like most about the media industry in particular? Because obviously people watching this might be looking at all different industries. So like, would you say like the best thing about working in the media industry in particular?
Well, in particular, working at Channel 4, I'll say culture, because it is a media base, so it's quite modern, I would say, because it's media, it has to keep up with trends and just a way of being. I feel like everyone's quite modern. Like when it comes to clothing, they have to worry about putting on a full-on suit, being too formal, is quite relaxed, and you feel like you can get your work done in a nice, like calm environment.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you can really be yourself. Like we all sort of like wear the clothes we want to wear. We come to work just like feeling like ourselves, which I think is quite nice. I can't actually
Yeah.
imagine going to work and wearing a suit now, just because, or whatever you'd wear in sort of like a big corporate office. Um, okay, cool. And then, um, what is involved? Like, Kamal, for your role, it's a bit more sort of like operational. You're in the people team. Like, what's involved in your like day-to-day role?
Day-to-day roles, it's very busy and it's really good. Feel like I've experienced a lot. I get to go to external venues, set up different, because in learning and development we have to produce like training and just set up different like workshops.
Yeah.
So we had today, like I'm in an external event, as you can see behind me, had a nice venue on for the AV team, which was very productive, quite good. You learn a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else, any of you, sort of like any events you've been to or anything that sort of stood out so far in your apprenticeship journey that you thought was like really cool and you didn't realise you'd get to experience?
I mean, our social media team had one recently. It was an internal thing, you know, we weren't out at some venue or anything, but we all sat down and we all took the time to sort of create a presentation and sort of display to our colleagues what we do and the kind of things that we want to be focusing on. So we had people focusing on reactive content online. We had people focusing on content IDing and how copyright works online. And I think to be in a room full of like industry professionals who all have the same goals as you do to sort of like propel the business forward, it's really insightful because you never really get to have that opportunity when you're in like university, for example, because although you're being taught by an industry professional, you're surrounded by people who are in very similar positions as you, who are still trying to get into the industry.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's like before you join, you just don't know what to expect, and then I think when you come into the business, it's just like everything you expected, but like more. Like it's just so exciting going into these meetings and meeting people. And I think another thing I wanted to ask is like, I think a lot of people that puts them off apprenticeships, maybe that they want to go to uni for like the social side, and they think, you know, obviously they're going to meet loads of new people. Would you say that you still experience like a good community and a good social side going into an apprenticeship? Do you think it's still as good as like as you would go to uni?
Yeah, no, I'd definitely say so. Like since starting, there's always been like an apprentice network, and that's just like one of many. You know, you're going to make friends with your team, you're going to make friends with your friend's team. You know, it's this kind of endless. And then you've got your like your summer party, your Christmas party, events like the guys have just spoken about. So I mean, there's so many opportunities to network, to socialize. You know, after work you can go out. You know, there's loads of opportunities, so I wouldn't, be put off of the idea that, if I don't go to uni, I'm not going to have that social aspect, because it's just not true. There's so much opportunity outside of uni.
Yeah, definitely. I think so, same. Like I've met so many people that I would never meet before. So I feel like I've met the same amount of people that I would have met at uni anyway. And Sean, what attracted you to Channel 4 as well? Because I know you obviously did sort of have like an audio background, but what
Mhm.
about like when you were looking at apprenticeships, what like sort of stood out for you about Channel 4?
Like I say, it's one of those companies that everyone knows. So initially, I'd already gotten an offer to go to university, but after I flew down and I got to see the Channel 4 offices, I got to meet a bit of the team during my interview and flew back. It just seemed like such an incredibly different environment to what I'd expected. A lot more welcoming and friendly. And eventually, when I got the offer, I dropped uni. I was like, I'm gonna go work for Channel 4. I think the other thing is, I think the challenge, especially with media and that sort of creative industries, is it's very difficult to get your foot in the door. It's very competitive. So I think that's another thing with the apprenticeship. It's really good is you get your foot in the door into this industry and you're able to start networking as well and grow in your career.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really a great way to enter the media industry. I think loads of people want a job in media, so doing it through an apprenticeship is like such a great route to sort of break into such a popular industry. And how did you find it like relocating, Sean, like down? Was it because I know a lot of people might be looking at a few of our roles and think, oh, I'm not from London, but I do really like the look of that London role. Did you find it okay, like with the move, especially with joining an apprenticeship? Was it okay, or was it like a bit daunting?
Well, a bit of both. So the handy thing with Channel 4 is that they offer a relocation scheme. If you live further than 30 miles from, let's say, the London-based office, they'll offer you support in terms of helping with your first month's rent or paying for a hotel while you're moving, or if you're moving down and viewing flats or whatever. Um, the daunting side of it is, and then what you have to do is you've got to be prolific and do your research because it's very difficult to find a place that's both cheap and also um, easy to get in for working in Channel 4. So it's a bit of both. It was a bit daunting, but it's that's life. It's an adventure.
Yeah, definitely. I think the relocation package is definitely like a really good scheme that we offer here. I mean, because people might not know about it, but we offer you help with your first month rent. We offer help for you to do sort of like looking around, looking at different if you're coming down to London or whatever location to look at flats, we can offer help with that for your travels. So it is something to really consider if you're thinking, gosh, I don't know if I want to relocate. It's handy to have that scheme that we offer as well. Um, and then, so Kamal, could you just like let me know like any advice you'd sort of give someone that's looking into the media industry, or anything like any application tips or any kind of advice that would be helpful for someone that might want to apply to a Channel 4 apprenticeship?
I mean, just if you see the application, if it may you may feel, oh, that looks a bit quite like a lengthy application, just go for it, because you don't know the opportunities that uphold when you get a position here. There's like endless amounts of things you can do. The team's so welcoming. I mean, the application process is quite fun. Like there's quite a few questions in there that I enjoyed, such as doing like a little tweet, which was quite like a Channel 4 thing. Um, just go for it. I would say just go for it. You shouldn't miss out on any opportunities given.
Yeah, definitely. I think people might look at the application questions and like just think, oh, I haven't got time for that. But it's definitely worth it once you sort of like if you get through to the next stage, or if you end up landing a role, then that time you took to do the application questions is actually going to be worth it in the end. Um, and then sort of anything else like how Sean, I'm going to ask you, what's it like? So you work in the technology team, and obviously we have like a technology role. It's not exactly the same as yours, but we've got a tech role open in London at the moment.
Mm.
What do you like about working in technology?
So it's the area I'm working in is very broad. So whilst I have that audio background and a lot of the stuff that I've been getting to do whilst starting working at Channel 4 has been audio related, I've been working on a lot of other stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise, such as sort of looking into the sort of subtitling side of Channel 4, and also looking into just understanding networking and how the framework of everything with like the Channel 4 app works. So it's very broad, and you sort of experience tons of things that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. Technology, there's so much that goes into it. It's just like a really interesting department. And Lewis, I actually wanted to speak to you because I know you applied for quite a few apprenticeships, sort of like before you landed your Channel 4 role. What advice would you give to someone who may be like looking at quite a few apprenticeships? They might be getting a bit put off if they're not, sort of if they're getting rejected, and they feel like they're just like getting a bit down about it all. What would sort of like you say? Because I know you sort of went through the process of applying to quite a few.
Yeah. So I applied to like around 25 different ones before I got one. So yeah, unfortunately, like rejection is just going to come with it, and that is just something you're just going to have to get used to, because it comes in all forms of life, and this is just one of those. So the best thing you can do is just know it is a part of the process, and it there is going to be a role for you somewhere. So just keep applying, and I'd strongly encourage us to apply to as many as you can, because the more applications you make, the more chance you've got of landing one. So yeah, just to keep applying, keep your head up, and just keep going, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, literally. It's true though, like you might get rejected from one and you might get into another. You just have to persist with it, because otherwise, if you just give up after one rejection, then
Yeah, you'll
you're
get
never
nowhere.
going to get, yeah, you're never going to get anything. So I think that's so true, like just to stick at it and keep going. Okay, so like before we finish, I just want to like go round and sort of everyone just to give like sort of one piece of advice they'd give to their younger self looking at apprenticeships, or one piece of advice you give to anyone else, just something you want someone to take away from this YouTube live. So Lewis, can you start us off?
Yeah, so I'd say one crucial bit of advice is when you are applying to a role, let's say it be social media like Taylor, if you're interested in that like creative social media side and you're set on social media, I'd recommend like branch out a little bit, maybe do videos, or I don't know, audio or something. Just don't just stay on one role, because there may only be just like 5 roles in that department, but there can be 20 in another, which are very similar. So yeah, just keep your options open.
Thanks, Lewis. Taylor?
Just go for it. Honestly, the amount of people that I've spoken to who, whilst I was applying for Channel 4, they just said, "Oh, what if you don't get it? What if, something happens?" It's one of those things where a solid answer, whether it's yes or no, is so much better than a you'll never know. So just if you've got even the smallest inkling, just to go for it.
Thanks. Sean?
Yeah, similar grounds as Taylor. Just don't hesitate. Just go for it. And the key part is don't be afraid to network and contact anybody and anything to do with media. So if you're even interested in just audio, still just contact anyone who does video editing or that, and just network, because even the tiniest connection can mean longer lasting sort of connections in the industry.
Yeah, definitely. And Kamal?
I would just say, don't be lazy. If something seems long and full of effort, just go for it. You have to just take the risk and just do the best to secure your future.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it is. I think the thing I would take away is just to go for it. What have you got to lose? Apply to different companies, but apply to Channel 4 especially, because our apprenticeships are great. And yeah, just stick at it. If you don't get it the first time, apply again, because you just have to stay persistent. But yeah, I think that's anything else anyone wanted to input, or anything they wanted to take away from today? Nope. Perfect. All right.
Covered everything.
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah, so application deadline to apply is February 27th. So get your application in before then. Remember to do additional questions, and connect with any of us if you've got any questions. If you want to get in touch with the guys about anything to do with media, then let us know. But thank you so much for joining this live stream today. I hope it was helpful, and thank you for everyone for taking part, and it was really interesting to hear your answers today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.